Hey, it's Connor Steele, and I'm here today to show you some changes that have been made to the game. One of the big things is that Chris found this article about making you can cull geometry, just like you're seeing here. Yeah, so that was really nice, and we added this to the game in a way that's actually works better for us. But the whole walkthrough is here, and at the bottom of the thing, there's updates to actually make it look more like our current version, and I'm pretty sure when we actually got it implemented, it was almost exactly like the man had put it up on there. So, let me just open up our demo level here. Alright, so here's a demonstration of what's going to happen. Is you walk into a building, and if you see this box right here, this green box is the outline of the collider, and it culls all the geometry it comes into contact to that's labeled, that has a component. So step out, boom, reappears, step in, disappears. These are different textures right now, that's why it looks a little bit weird, but I'll fix that up. I was messing around with materials. So that looks nice, and then if we go over here, same thing with this house. So this will let us do interiors for the game really easily. And you can see. So I think I'm going to eject and see if I can demonstrate this a little bit better. What's going on here? Okay. So here's what's going on, is that this player has this box that spawns on them like this, and it goes from the player to the camera, and everything that's inside of this box that gets hit gets added to a array. I'm gonna pull up the blueprint to make this easy to understand. So this is what's happening. You can literally see it in action right now. So the update fade actors function, we added the functions over here, explains in the tutorial, and we got a sequence going on. First it clears everything, and then it gets the multi-trace for objects. So we have multi-box trace for objects. There's a bunch of multi-trace things we can do, and originally it was a capsule component, and we were using the capsule component from the actor, but Chris and I talked about it, and we want to see a wider space inside of the houses. So we originally used 5 traces, 5 capsule traces. So we would have a capsule on the player, a capsule here, a capsule here, a capsule here, and a capsule here, and they would all converge onto the camera, and it would call anything. And we actually do have a commit in the GitHub repo about that, but ignore that for now, because this way is just way more cost effective for what we're doing. We're pretty sure. You just get a big box, you set the size right here, 500, and then we get the actor's location for the end location and the start locations from the camera. So it's actually from the camera to the player, and you can see that it wants to make an array. You look to see the return values if it hit anything. So if it's true, it hit something, it'll go through each of the things that it hit in the hit with the trace. And if the hit actor is a static mesh, this cast will succeed, otherwise it'll fail and do nothing. It'll add it to the hit meshes. It'll only add unique instances of meshes it hits. So if it hits a mesh over and over again, it'll only add the first time it hits the mesh. And then we call this set shown meshes and set hidden meshes functions. Here's the set hidden meshes function. It calls, you set the array for each loop, get the components. We get this fade component, the BP fade component, and then you toggle the mesh to be hidden, and then I'm pretty sure the set shown hidden is the same logic. Get the hidden meshes, you get the hit ones, and you do the false on this branch that it doesn't contain, and you would turn them back on. So that's how that all works. So you're looking for the fade component, and it's pretty easy to set the fade component. All you would do, let me pause the game here. Let me make this bigger so it's easier to see. We got the components for the meshes, and we have this BP fade right here. So you can add it to any geometry, like this right here or this right here. Add the BP fade, but we didn't want it to always be firing. We're gonna have a different cone that fires, because we don't want it to be super wide all the time. We're gonna use more of a spherical one for when we're out in the world. So like if you walk right here, you'd be able to see through the wall and see your player, or like here, you would be able to see your player directly. We're making a demo level for Milestone for Hongs. But the way that we ended up actually doing this is we made this blueprint right here, and the way that we did is right-click, make a blueprint class, and we just did a trigger box. And then if you click on the collision component, you can wire up the on component, begin overlap, and end overlap. And what it's looking for is the protagonist's capsule component. And if it is that, then you set the protagonist to be inside. And if the overlap ends, you set the inside to be false. And you have to delay to wait for the curve to fade for the materials to happen. Otherwise, it won't work. So this will make sure that we were having problems initially where it would get the vision cone, but you need to make sure that it's casting to the capsule component to make sure that it's actually the player's hitbox and not their vision box. So this is how the this is how the logic is turned on for. Let me go to the update fade actors. This branch right here, so it is inside gets set here, and then if it's true, it goes through all that. If it's false, it'll clear all the hit meshes. And it'll update this shown meshes. And then on the event graph, all we do is we set the timer function by name, update fade actors, which is this one right here. So we call it 0.2, so we don't need to call it every frame, so it's a little bit more efficient. And we make it looping too. Chris understands this stuff a little bit better than I am, but I'm just giving the brief overview. So if we're trying to replicate this in the future, we can do it pretty well. We made this new fade static mesh right here, and inside we have the ease component. So to make this, all you do is right click in here, go to miscellaneous, and then it's a curve. So that's interpolation basically. So it's going to interpolate from this 0.3 opacity up to 1 opacity. So literally changing this curve will change the opacity, and it'll change how it looks when you walk inside buildings. So now this will be 10% instead of 3%, and you can see it is more visible, but it's using the other texture that's on there. So if we click on the BP fade, this is the fade material, and for each of our materials now we're gonna have to make, well, each of the materials that we need to get cold. So we have the original brick material, and then which is on the component already here. This is opaque, and then we have translucent materials now. We're set to translucent, and let me go back up here. Go to BP fade, and then the fade curve is set to our curve that we defined in the blueprint right here. So that was this, and then by default this defaults to the faded material, but we want to set this up to be our translucent material that we set up custom. And this is the fade component that we add to each of the classes. Toggle, hide mesh, and then we have a bunch of variables. This is the only function that we got here. Event graph. This is the event graph. That tutorial will walk through all of this stuff. We just followed the man's explanation. But it's making a dynamic material and setting it to the fade material so we can swap between them. So talk to Chris if you want to understand this better, because he knows what's going on a little bit better than I do here. It's pretty easy to understand with these, but you just have to walk through it. And the way to make a component like this is really nice. Just make a blueprint class, and then you can actually just make an actor component. So this is really nice if you're familiar with Unity, if you're watching this video. I know that Connor and Chris are very familiar with Unity because we use it for game design. You can just make this like a script that you would attach to like a prefab in Unity, and now you can just attach it. And this is how we're attaching it to all the static meshes. Very, very nice that we can just make a blueprint we can attach like that. Some other things that got changed is Chris added these buttons. I don't think they were in the last one, but they mimic the functionality of what our blueprint version of the game did, where you have to click on this button to attack, and then you can put out all your attacks, and if you click this, it'll cancel your attacks. I'll update these with UI things, but I also changed it so if we go to the attacks and go to the Dark Whirl, this is the attack that's instantiated by the player when they click. It's really straightforward what I'm doing here to make it delete itself. You just set, at begin play, set the flip book to not loop right here, and then on the finished play of the flip book that you have, destroy the actor, and that's it. So with that, the Dark Whirl will only play once, and then it'll go away when it's done playing. Before it was looping. So I'll finish up this. We're gonna make a town, and we're gonna make a fighting level for Hongs to demo for our 30% progress meter, or progress. Sorry, I'm a little out of it right now. It's kind of late. And yeah, that'll basically be it. Oh, there's one other thing. I've been playing around with materials right now to get normal maps to look better. If you notice, these bricks actually look like they have a nice depth to them, but they are having some artifacting going on. Kind of looks like right here you can see pretty clearly, it's like, doesn't look so good. So I'm trying to figure that out better right now. But let me go into the material editor. So what I did is I'm hooking up this is the same, and I broke the UV maps because I noticed that. Let me just get these. Like a texture coordinate, and then I'm going to set this to 2 and 2, and then I'll rehook up all of these. The UV will determine how many times the texture is tiled or displayed. Let's see how this looks here in a second. Okay. So if I were to make this 5 and 5, it's going to get a lot smaller, and the texture is going to have a lot, see? You can see the difference there. It tiles more. So set this down to 2, but I was noticing that the smaller I made it, the more artifacting I was getting, so there might be a problem with mint maps. But I was basically just using a free website. I just searched normal map generator. I was just using this right here, and dragging in the photo that I was using, and then downloading. You can download the normal, displacement, ambient, and specular maps, and you can preview what it might look like over here. And then inside of Unreal, I hooked up the normal map, and I was watching a little bit about a video about that. But if we get up close here, it does give a lot more depth to the material because it actually kind of looks at the right angles. Here, let me do the cube. It looks like it has more depth. If I were to break these, and then break the ambient occlusion one, you can see it looks very flat, but literally as soon as I hook up this normal map, it does give it a nice depth. I might have cranked up the settings a little bit too hard when I was messing around on the other end, but I'm still trying to figure this out. It'll give our game a lot of really nice depth to the pixel art just for walls and whatnot. And honestly, I was hearing people say that they were bump mapping all their sprites, adding normal maps to all their sprites, and it really, the way that the lighting plays off of it made it look a lot nicer. So I'll keep looking into that. But right here, I think you can tell that this looks a lot better than what it looked like earlier. Let me just duplicate this material and apply a side-by-side one with no normal maps hooked up and no ambient occlusion hooked up. This is a separate branch right now just to keep it if I fuck anything up, it'll be separate. So this is all has the normal mapping, and then let me on this guy drag up this material, and I think you can see this side by side that the normal map one, you can tell it has more depth to the texture. This looks very flat, and this actually looks like it might be individual bricks that have gaps between them. So that's really all for today's video. Combat and stuff's working a lot better. The game's actually coming together. We can still rotate the camera, but Chris and I were talking about it more, and we think that we might just remove the camera rotation since we got geometry culling working really well for facing one direction, but as soon as we start introducing rotating camera, into culling the geometry, it could be a serious pain. So we might just keep it like this, because we can build our worlds very specifically to work this way. Like, I can't think of a very good example right now. I mean, Pokemon and all those games, and Octopath build their worlds specifically to only be in one point of view without a rotating camera, so we just have to be thoughtful like them. But things like doing this do provide some problem, and that's why I'll probably set it up tonight where it'll still cull while you're outside, but it'll be a smaller box that'll cull all around you. So thanks for watching the video today, guys. Have a good one.